1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Dogg the Dogg and Dr. Dre are at the door, ready to make an entrance, so back on up, cause you know we're about to respect the minimum social distancing guidelines of at least 6 feet. Hello and welcome to Shite Talk History. This is Jason speaking. I'm going to run the intro this week because Kevin has edited my episode for me. Why is that, you're asking, Jason? Are you lazy? Do you not have any interest in the podcast? Do you not love the listenership? All of that's very true, but unfortunately I was also caught on the hop last minute on Friday to do a whole weekend of work, which I'm not going to complain about because it's the COVID season, so all work is gratefully appreciated. So while I can't complain, it also does mean I'm going to complain a little bit, because I thought I'd have Friday night, all day Saturday and all day Sunday and all day Monday to do it, but I didn't. I had to work all of those days, and I never got home to record the podcast because I slept on the office's couch. So there's that, but I am recording it now at midnight Central Standard Time. So for that very reason, along with the earlier, remember I was mentioning me being lazy and not caring about y'all and everything, I'm going to try and keep this intro pretty short. Around this time we usually do a shout out for our Buy Me a Coffee page where people can support us. This week, I mean, it seems weird and wrong to ask people for money at times like this, so instead of doing that, why don't you, if this is your first time to listen to the podcast, share it to a friend or someone you think might like it. If you're a fan and you've been listening to a load of episodes of the podcast, then you can pay us. No, what you can do is you can tell 3 people. You tell 3 people about the podcast, tell them how great it is, tell them if they like it, they tell 3 people about the podcast and how great it is. It's like that Haley Joel Osment movie, Forrest Gump. I hope people get that joke. It's very late. Haley Joel Osment was Forrest Gump Jr. in Forrest Gump, and if you didn't know that, now you do. So enjoy this week's episode about John O'Mahony. And actually, no, that reminds me, because I'm listening to the song now as it's played underneath me talking. That very same song that's going to be stuck in your ears for the next month. It's a recent single from Dublin band Sync. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because you might know somebody in that band. It's silent producer Dan of Shite Talk History alumni fame, whatever the word is. So yeah, go check them out at SYNK. That's right, it's Sync with a Y, if you'd believe such a thing. And now that actually is everything properly this time. Enjoy this week's episode about John O'Mahony. Kilbehedy is the location for the mouth of this story, which, if you didn't know, was equidistant between Limerick and Cork, as it lies on the border. It's also 2 miles from Tipperary, so they have absolutely no claim to it whatsoever. Because that seems close, 2 miles. I'm only 2 miles from there. If you're a really good runner, you might get there in 15 minutes.
It already seems like it's contentious between 2 other counties. Why bring a third into it?
But it's referenced a lot online like that, so I didn't know exactly how to feel about that. It's just once.
I'd say fuck tip.
What I'm going to say is, because I feel like we get more stories about Cork people. I feel like I'm going to say Limerick. Sorry if we have any listeners out there from Kilbeheny. I don't care.
You're in Limerick now.
So, born in 1815 or 16 in Limerick, John O'Mahony grew up in a family of, quote, strong farmers. They were a low-level gentry, And yes, Kevin, they were of the Roman Catholic variety. You'll be glad to hear.
Fair play to them.
But as soon as you hear farmers and low-level gentry,
yeah,
right? I didn't know there was a low-level gentry.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a binary thing. You're either in or you're out. I don't know if you can be low-level gentry. That's like upper, lower, middle class.
You keep the farmers on your land like as slaves and just tell them that they're low-level gentry.
Yeah,
and quote, strong farmers.
Strong farmers.
I don't know why I enjoyed that so much, but it's...
it does sound like they do all their farming by hand.
Speaking of hands, they're attached to arms, which is what his father and uncle would have used while active members of the United Irishmen, taking part in this.
I think it's a little early to give it away just yet, but you know what? I'm gonna give you an award for greatest segue of the podcast. Well done. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, you deserve it.
So his uncle and dad took part in the Irish Rebellion of 1798, which should be one of the lesser talked about rebellions, I think it'd be fair to say.
Yeah.
For good reason as well, because it failed miserably.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose every rebellion that fails is miserable because you're never going to be... It's not really one of those, like... It's not like sports where you're like, oh, it's the taking part that counts. It's very much so one of these things with an end goal that has quite a lot of importance.
Everything is on the line. Yeah. If you fail, it tends to be a catastrophic event.
Yeah. But could you name all the rebellions?
No. Is the 1798, is that the one that was planned in the Lord Edward?
Or is that the 1848 one?
Listen, man, every time 16 paddies got together and had a couple of shots of poaching, they were talking about rebellion. There's too many of them. Can't keep up.
There's way too many of them, because there was this one, there's that 48, there's the 1916 one, and then there's that TV show that RT produced, which was by far and away the worst of all of them.
Yes.
A Trinity scholar, that's where he would have studied such fancy things as Hebrew, Sanskrit, and the most complicated language of them all, Gaelic. He loved the classics, but I imagine then the classics are kind of just whatever someone wrote the week before or at the time.
Yes, yeah, the classics were fresh off the press.
Yeah, or else you're going back way too far. You're like, I love the classics. I like reading Plato. And I'm like, I like reading classics. I like Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
Yeah.
Like 70s and 80s. That's my idea of classics.
That's the classics.
So he was a Gaelic scholar, but also later taught Greek and Latin, despite the fact that he never actually got a degree. He left without completing his degree. To be fair, I wouldn't have stayed either. I don't know how important it is to the whole story, but I found out that his brother died while he was going to college, so he got his share of the inheritance, which was like £300.
Okay. Yeah, £300, that's walking away money. You don't need a future education when you're busy.
Oh yeah,
you're
talking per annum. You're talking a cool 300 punts per annum.
Well, I was in the middle of
300 punts per 12 months.
Every 12 months you get 300 punts. That is walking away money. I mean, that's really good. What the hell would you do worrying about languages? The only language you need then, Jason, is the fucking cash. That'll do your talking for you.
How much money would you need per annum? How many punts per 12 months would you need to drop out of college?
If we're talking punts per month, now it's different. When I was in college, if someone had offered me £300 a month, I probably would have dropped out at certain points. I would have needed very little persuading.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, to be fair, at the time we were in college, the dole wouldn't have been too far off that. So there was people basically offering you that to drop out of college.
Sure, yeah. And some days you'd wake up and you'd think, you know what, that's a good deal.
So anyway, he went and joined Daniel O'Connell's repeal of the active union movement, but he didn't stay in it all too long, because he became quite impatient with their dilly-dallying and, fecking around and doing nothing. So he decided to jump ship and join Smith O'Brien's Young Irelander movement in 1845.
Okay, yeah.
Now, that's a year.
That is a year.
1845.
That's a big year.
That's not the famine year.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to trick you. just to make you second guess yourself. And it's also the year that the Parsons telescope was created.
What it's best known for is the year that Parsons finished his big telescope project. And then as a footnote in history, everybody died.
But 1845 is very close to what year, Kevin?
1846?
1848.
Right.
Technically, you were right. It is closer to 1846, but we didn't have a rebellion in that year. But we did in 1848.
Right.
So, and as we mentioned earlier, it didn't go down. That one didn't go down too well either. None of our rebellions did, really.
But Jason, tell me, why would the people have been annoyed in 1848?
What was was it that genocide thing?
Perhaps, maybe. We're not 100% sure that it wasn't telescope related, but it might have been a mix of both, I suppose.
We shouldn't be making jokes about the famine. That's how you get a BBC sitcom cancelled.
Yeah, Jesus, remember whatever happened to that? Was that just shelved on
Nothing.
List of terrible ideas?
I would have watched it.
I would have watched it so I could be angry about it.
No, but if it was written by Irish people,
yeah,
and acted by Irish people, I'd have been okay with it. Possibly.
I would have tried to be in it, and then when they wouldn't cast me, I'd suddenly get very opinionated about
it. Tell me this. The rebellion doesn't go down well in 1848. So what do you think O'Mahony does? And I'll give you this little hint. It's a great option.
He runs away. Flees the country.
He does. He flees. He flees
brilliant.
Not out of the country first, to the hills of...
Donegal.
That would have been the reference I was hoping you'd say a lot quicker, and then I'd go, no, it was actually Kilkenny and Waterford.
Okay.
So that's where he kept up the guerrilla warfare tactics before eventually finding a way out of the heat, gets himself over to...
France.
Yes.
Excellent.
Paris, specifically.
Very good.
He spends a while there writing articles about Ireland for French newspapers, so he could speak a bit of French, obviously, as well.
Yeah, he had a couple of words.
He had a couple of languages, to be fair. He had a lot of words in all of them.
Oh, sure, actually, yeah.
He grows...
Sure, once you've got Latin, Jason, you've got them all.
Sure, look. Once you have one, you can kind of feck your way through the other, just blag it.
Yeah.
It's all tout de la fruit. He grows tired of living in poverty.
People often do, yeah.
I can tell you, as a journalist of the past, that's exactly what it's like.
Yes, yeah.
I don't hear good things about Paris. I just wanted to throw it out there.
What?
I mean, nowadays, maybe back then it was good, but I don't know. It sounds very expensive, and there's meant to be a lot of shitty parts in it.
Yeah.
So then, and there's French people.
I actually might be going to Paris now in a couple of weeks. By the time this comes out.
Oh, is that because you're in a committed romantic relationship and you feel the need to keep rubbing that in my face?
No, work is sending me for a training thing.
You going over on some sexy work business outing, rubbing it in my face?
No, but did you ever hear the story of the guy who sold the Eiffel Tower? He was a con artist.
No.
Yeah, it's a good story for probably a different podcast. But yeah, some guy he got all the like scrap dealers of Paris together, pretended to be a government official, and was like, "Right, lads, this is on the down low, but we're getting rid of the Eiffel Tower. Who wants the contract?" So they all bid for it. He took the money and then just left.
I think
But in a shocking move, he did it again. He came back like a few years later or whatever, did the same scam again. And then got caught the second time, I think.
It's a shame he got caught. I was going to say that's brilliant because everyone would be so confident of not getting scammed again because it'd be like there's no way he can think he can get away with this twice.
Sure, but I guess he kept it on the hush. He told everyone that like it was a secret thing, it hasn't been announced yet, so like keep it yourselves. And then after they realized it was a scam, they were probably too embarrassed to say anything.
Just let it happen again. But through literature and everything as well, I suppose a lot of the time you'll see the seedier side of Paris back in the day.
Sure.
So it can be rough, I guess. It's not all fancy, you know. It's a bit of what's the nice way of putting it? A toilet. A real toilet.
Yeah.
And
it's not all the Champs-Élysées.
Not one of those fancy small toilets that goes beside the regular toilet.
Not a bidet.
A what?
A bidet?
You like the fancy ones because they're fancy because someone else cleans it after you. You just leave it there.
Have you just been shitting in bidets?
So up he gets and decides to have the notion.
Bidet to you, sir.
So he decides then he's sick of this poor life over in Paris. I'm sick of looking at all these boyos flocking off to the States looking for a better life. You know, all these boys in the better land, Kevin. They want a future. They want a wife, a next generation. What about me? Why don't I go over there? What's keeping me back? What do I have going on for me here? Why don't I get a job? Why don't I establish the Fenian Brotherhood?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
This is the guy who starts the Fenian Brotherhood.
Yeah. And that's why
Amazing.
this episode is going to be called Fenian Fi Full Fum.
Fantastic.
Or Shin na Fenian Fall.
Okay.
I'm
Fenian fine.
Just when you think that you're out, they pull you back, Fenian.
Looks like we're not in Fenian anymore, Toto.
He'd have known James, O'Mahony would have known James Stevens, the founder of the IRB, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, for anyone who didn't know, Kevin. And when they left France, one of them went to Ireland, Stevens, and the other went to America, O'Mahony, to divide and conquer the job out, or not divide and conquer, to divide and spread out the workload across continents. Yeah. So O'Mahony was heavily involved in the Irish community and was part of a number of charities and organisations to help other immigrants coming over to the States.
Okay.
Which is a great way of building numbers for the Fenian Brotherhood.
Sure, yes.
When you think about it. But he didn't just establish the Fenian Brotherhood while he was in America. He had some other things going on as well. He made a translation over there of Geoffrey Keating's History of Ireland, which was meant to be very good, but probably fairly dated now.
Probably, yeah.
He missed out on quite a lot. That came directly after.
In many ways, we're the spiritual successors to Geoffrey Keating's History of Ireland.
If you can find an updated version, it'd probably be good. But
yeah.
It was all ancient Ireland, because I was kind of wondering what did they mean with the Irish. It was like Cú Chulainn and all the old proverbs and stories and myths and stuff. I think.
So is this where did he call the group the Fenians? Obviously, is after the Cú Chulainn Brotherhood. They were the Fenians.
Ho! Kevin Larney jumping a whole paragraph ahead of what I was going.
Well, now, Jason, I believe Fenian is the old Gaelic word for warrior.
Oh, Kevin, do you want to take over?
It's also it's the old Gaelic word for warrior, but it's also what our lads in Belfast might call you. If someone called you a Fenian bastard, it's probably time to finish your pint of harp and get out of the bar.
I've told you numerous times, stop drinking harp in Belfast.
I told you, stop shouting Fenian bastard at me.
They still won't sponsor this podcast. I've been on to them so many times. O'Mahony's notes were copied from O'Donovan's Four Masters, and it was on this grounds that Hodges and Smith procured an injunction against the sale of the book in the United Kingdom. So he didn't actually make any profits off it, in like Ireland or England. So he's kind of screwed like that. There was a man called Dr. Todd in his preface to the Wards of the Gaelha with the Gael. He said that O'Mahony's translation of Keating is a great improvement upon the ignorant and dishonest one published by Mr. Dermot O'Connor more than a century ago, but has been taken from a very imperfect text and has evidently been executed, as he himself confesses, in great haste. Which has taken some serious side-eye. I got a century side-eye. Hey, Dr. Todd, what have you done that's so great?
Yeah, that is a lot of... he's pretty down on the guy.
Yeah, well, he was very down on Dermot O'Connor, considering the guy had been probably dead for a century.
What was he saying that Dermot O'Connor had translated it inaccurately? So, it says here, Keating says that all people from Carlow smell like pigs. Listen, that's just how I translated it. That's what it says.
But that
was around for 100 years.
But then O'Donovan's Four Masters was meant to be, that's a separate person now than O'Connor. Everyone's trying to do the history of Ireland. Just say, do you know what? There's all of these people out there now trying to monetize Irish diaspora's interest in their history through like forms of modern media. And I, for one, will not stand for it, Kevin.
You know what, Jason? I, for two, am against it. This is probably a good time to remind our listeners that you can head over to Buy Me a Coffee and give us money to do something else. But we're not these people that like play on people's nationalism as an attempt to make a quick buck. All of our books have been quite slow to come.
Yeah, no, we're not going to jump on top of like a jingoistic, nationalistic tide that's streeping across the world. We're not going to go all rah, rah, rah. And that wouldn't be like Irish politics.
No, not at all.
So the fact that he didn't make any money from the book means that it was an awful lot of stress for Mahoney. This was his main job at the time. The book gets spiked, makes no money, so he was sent to a mental asylum by his friends for a while in 1857.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a rough time. But he comes back from this. He manages to use this time to think over some things, comes back to regular society, a better person. Then
So he's successfully gone through an insane asylum in 1857.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to hear what ideas he came back with from the 1857 insane asylum. I can't wait to hear this clean thought through plot.
They're pretty good. No, but he's
okay.
So the thing about John is, I know you're expecting this story to go off on a tangent now at any moment. No, he goes about
some of my best ideas came to me in an insane asylum.
I think he got a moment of clarity when he was in there, and he was like, "This Fenian Brotherhood thing has to go up to another level," which,
of course.
But that's when he would have. Yeah, well, I guess that is like, this is the time period. Like he set up the Fenian Brotherhood after he was in an insane asylum.
We set it up after.
Let me just double check, but like I just want to be 100% sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it is. It is.
Amazing.
It's a positive experience in the long run, though. Comes back and thinks, hey, Fenian Brotherhood. There's no reference to the fact that this idea has come from his time in the mental asylum, but
sure,
it's a year after. Like this, it's established a year after. It's called the Fianna, just like you'd said earlier, from the Fionn McCool's Warrior Army, or as I like to call them, Merry Men. No, sorry.
Yeah, sure. They take from the rich and give to the copyright infringement.
Or also, if just to clarify, if they weren't merry men, they were warriors who killed people in cold blood. But he'd
sure.
Or is that the politically correct? I don't know. I'm trying to stay on everyone's good side. How do we feel about mythological armies?
Let's just say not all Fenians, and we'll sidestep this hot controversial topic.
Fair. But the Brotherhood wouldn't have officially started until 1864, 1865, when there was a big convention in Chicago and in Cincinnati, and then they're up and running, sucking diesel, as they'd say. Yeah, O'Mahony is elected president, which only seems fair as he's started the organization. But
sure, yeah,
it's an American system of the electoral process and governance. So they have a 10-member Senate with a leader of the Senate, and then a president with limited power.
Okay.
So it's not. So he still has that Senate in charge of him. This will become apparent in a while why that's important.
Sure.
Considering his military background, it's probably not shocking to know that he took part in the Civil War in America, scaling to the rank of Colonel of the 69th Regiment of the New York State Militia.
So he took part on the Union side?
Yes, on the good side. The good guys.
Yes, okay.
Plenty of... Oh, no, this isn't one of those stories where it takes a negative turn afterward, like so many of our other Irish guys. Irish guy, gone abroad, done well. Ooh, skeletons.
Has some opinions. Doesn't stand the test of time.
There's plenty of accounts say that a lot of this militia, in particular, as well as any militia that found itself situated roughly near a group of or town containing like just any Irishman who would have had a problem with oppressive rulers and the lack of freedom of men, would have been heavily recruited by the Brotherhood.
Okay.
But I guess also like vice versa. Irish guys would have been joining the American Army, the Union side of it, and then afterwards they would have been joining back into the Brotherhood, but with money and more military experience and etc.
Sure.
By then,
yeah.
But by this time, O'Mahony had realized.
So he's poaching some of the Union officers. Well, after the war.
After the war, yeah, and then initially to get them in, he would be getting. They would have used Irish guys were same as we had this with Albert Cashier. That it's a great way of becoming legal to work, getting loads of money already, getting lots of rights and stuff. So it's like just do your couple of months or a year or two, and then that's you and your family kind of set.
Yeah.
If you don't die horribly.
And then if you really love the killing aspect of it, well then boy howdy, have we got a brotherhood for you.
But you see, it is at the end of the war. Only a couple of months in fairness, but a few months beforehand, O'Mahony actually steps back from his position as the colonel in the militia because it's taken up too much time and energy. Mental and physical energy he could transfer into the attempts to topple the English crown. So that's
he needs to get back to his insane asylum love child.
Yeah. So it's kind of a 50. What do I do? There's only so many hours in the day. There's only
yes.
What can you do? Yeah, Abe Lincoln and all, they seemed like they had it covered.
Right, yeah. But who's looking after the boys back home?
Exactly. Or the Irishmen in America looking to fight and hoping to do stuff. And there's so many of us there. You're wasting time. How could he pry the freedom of Eire from the cold, callous, powerful, corrupt hands of the British Empire unless he dedicated himself solely to the work of the Brotherhood, Kevin?
No arguments from me, Jason. This is a man who's done his time in the insane asylum. I'm with him 100% of the way.
So a few months later, he's obviously had a couple of months to plan things out now, and then the war ends, and you have this giant influx of Irishmen with money, with more fighting experience. They haven't lost their hatred of England. That's all still there. So you've got the first foot that's already been put forward, and that's all. That's all, Kevin. That's always the most difficult part. It's like, when you go back to the gym after Christmas.
No, but I'll pretend that I understand.
Yeah, and you've no motivation. You've no confidence. Everything's a bit off. The weather's shite. It's just making even getting to the building is difficult. It's just put you in a bad space. And then there's going to be all of these positive nationalist members around, new to it all, excited to start the year fresh. There's going to be, almost no space for you to go down and, gun down military representation of the country or overlords who've cruelly held your nation's freedom in a vice-like grip for the past 100 years, or squat racks, but and bench presses and such.
Yeah,
but so. Between the years of 1860 and 1867, there was reportedly over $500,000 donated to the cause. It's said that O'Mahony is thought to have sent back between 40 and 80,000 pounds worth of weaponry and money for weaponry. So during those years or his time in charge, but eventually he did have to step down from the Brotherhood.
Well, now, Jason, I'm not an accountant, but where was all the rest of the money going? A couple of discrepancies in the books.
It's not his fault, but I think you'll have an idea where it went very soon.
Okay.
Now, he eventually leaves...
because it's sort of more... If there's money disappeared from a corporation's books, the scandal would be that it would be funneling towards the likes of the Fenian Brotherhood or the IRA. Where are the Fenians funneling money to? Where are the terrorist organizations?
Hedge schools and
charity donations.
But eventually John leaves the Brotherhood, stepping down and devoting the last years of his life to writing and researching, like his earlier times as a scholar. Only problem was He was possibly the only person who rose to a position of power who didn't allow it to benefit himself, financially. He was often short of $1, which was grand until he suffered ill health. And he passed away in 1877 before being shipped home, with the body resting in the Mechanics' Institute at the Pro Cathedral, due to the fact that the Archbishop of Dublin, a one Paul Cardinal Cullen, was an anti-Fenian and wouldn't allow him into the morgue, I guess, at the time. So, which is a bit shite. But on March 4th, he was buried. You can find his remains. Whereabouts, Kevin? It's in Dublin.
Glasnevin Cemetery.
That is exactly where you can find him. Do you want to have a guess about how many people showed up for the funeral?
10,000.
70,000.
Jesus, okay, that's a big day out for the boys.
Yeah. Now he did a lot of good work for Ireland, the Irish people, at home and abroad, and he was fundamental in setting up what would become a giant source of income for the Irish military in the eventual war with Britain, and also just the Fenian Brotherhood in general. So now, that's the story in general.
Okay.
How do you feel about that as an episode?
Succinct.
Okay.
The rise and demise of one man and his insane organization.
Hey, shock twist! Bet you didn't see this coming. Do you want to know why he lost the presidency of the Fenian Brotherhood?
Why?
Well,
email scandal. He's got his dick sucked in the White House.
Yeah, he was caught saying, women love it when you grab them by the ankle. Well,
he was caught on tape, which was a form of sticky adhesive that they used at the time.
No. So after the Civil War in the States ended, the Brotherhood now had, like we were talking earlier, all this money, these members, more experience of fighting. They want to go, they want to fight England, but there's division amongst the camp of how do we go about doing this. O'Mahony and his supporters believed that the Fenians of America should have sent over guns, money and men to support the revolution in Ireland. The other wing, led by a one William Randall Roberts, thought that was a bad idea. I suppose believing that sending the weapons back to Ireland would be tough, getting them into the country, never mind the thousands of trained US Army veterans who would have to try and get back into the country. Because to be fair, it would seem a bit dodgy. You're like, why is there 50,000 people moving back to Ireland in one go from America? And why have they all taken part in the war? And why are they all rich now? And why are they all holding guns? And then t-shirts that say, fuck the British.
Yeah, it'd be hard to get through customs, I suppose.
But,
we all just remember that we love the crack.
But instead of that idea, which I imagine a lot of people would have been, for instead, and this was the winning side of the argument, with the presidency up for grabs, and then transferring over to Roberts. Instead, his idea was a bit more conservative, was born out of the thought that the Fenians and Ireland would be probably better served if they attacked Britain from where the Fenians were actually strong, and not in Ireland right beside Britain where it's going to be difficult. The British have a pretty tight grasp over Ireland at the time. We keep having these failed rebellions. So instead of throwing good money and men back to Ireland where they think it's going to be failed, they decide to help Ireland and the IRB in a more... I don't know if it's as obvious, but I would say it's kind of a more conservative. They decide to just launch a bunch of invasions into Canada in the hope of overthrowing the nation and then using that as leverage to negotiate the release of Ireland from Britain.
It's a curveball.
It's just so crazy it might work.
This is probably the first time someone said that phrase. Yes.
Yeah.
This was the origins of that phrase. Well, okay. The British, they've got a strong naval force. There's a lot of water between America and Ireland. Easy way around that. Invade Canada.
So yeah, that's the... I tried to set that up as this is obviously going to be a two-parter because there's no way... I found that out at the end of when I was researching this story. I couldn't just make this a 3-hour podcast.
Sure,
so I have to divide this up now, and we're going to come back to this whole thing at another date. Probably, I would imagine, next week.
I'm excited. It's a great scheme. Canada's right there, man. You can walk to it from New York. This isn't the idea of the man from the insane asylum. This is the sane man, his competition.
Yes, that's so. He O'Mahony was never actually in charge of that plan. He I don't know how against it he was, but he was never in charge of that sort of stuff. So he can he gets a pass on this.
Well, no, he doesn't get a pass. He wanted to attack England from halfway across the world like an idiot. When the obvious answer is go attack Canada. Canada, the world's antagonist.
Why would we want to fight a giant nation in this tiny land where they dwarf us? We should go and attack a more advanced civilization in a bigger, more harsh terrain.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, I'll look forward to that next week.
Well, so do I. I've got to do all the research for it in the meantime.
Sure.
So that's why I don't want to say too much about it now, because I don't know.
Right. Well, goodbye.
Okay, good luck, everyone. See you next week.